Hello and welcome to Reaching for the Moon, presented by Everglades Moon Local Council, Florida chapter of Covenant of the Goddess. COG supports individual works by its covens, members, and local councils. It's a vibrant network of a myriad of Wiccan and witchy resources, religious support, friendships, service opportunities, and more. What is COG? I'm Serona, Public Information Officer for Everglades Moon Local Council, and I am COG. To find out more, visit our website, emlc.net, our Facebook page, facebook.com/EvergladesMoon, or Twitter, @EMLCTweets. In this Samhain episode, we'll hear about how the change of seasons is unique to Florida, from Lady Bridget. Alpandia takes us through an invocation to Dis and Umbria. Kasha reviews The Witch's Book of the Dead by Christian Grey. Lord Riekin talks about ginger, horseradish, and molasses in the next segment of It'll Grow on You. Raven reads to us Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven. And we end the episode with part 1 of Skip Kemp's Rootwork workshop taught at the first annual Lake Okeechobee Summer Solstice Festival, before finally listening to Sink Down by Aradia on her album Songs for All Seasons. Enjoy!
The Subtle Signs of Samhain in South Florida by Lady Bridget. I've often said that Florida has 2 seasons, hot and dry and hot and wet. And I'm not the first person to say it, and I'm sure I won't be the last. It can sometimes be difficult when people first move to Florida. As many of us have from more northern climates, it's really hard to understand the subtleties of the changing seasons here. But we do have them, if you pay attention. Weather-wise, when I awaken in the morning and the humidity is not 100%, it's down in the 70% range, and I can definitely feel the difference. The temperature is maybe a scant 5 to 8 degrees cooler, and I would think, okay, well, it's getting closer to fall. But then, one day, there's an energetic shift in the air. I feel a shift in the energies, and now I know that Samhain season has arrived. This is mainly the time of the year that I feel this shift the strongest. This time of year there is a very definite magical slant. There's a saying that the Fae go below to the underworld at Samhain and that they don't return until Beltane. And I'm sure that's true in most areas of the world. But I wonder sometimes if the Fae don't come to Florida for the winter as so many other snowbirds do. Because this is the time of year that I feel the Fae and the spirit worlds. They're much stronger, much closer to the everyday world. And this is more than just a temperature change, more than just a change in humidity. There's an energetic change that happens, and you can feel it if you tune into it. It's similar to an energy charge in the air, as if things are waiting to happen. Not like thunderstorm electricity, but more like an expectation, as if nature is holding her breath. It's a very sensitive time. For me, reality feels more fragile, less solid, more fluid, more flexible. There are chills that go up your spine and tingles on your skin that have nothing at all to do with the weather getting cooler. A lot of our traditions teach that the veil between the worlds is thinnest at this time, and I do attribute what I feel, this energetic shift, to the veil being thinned, this sense of expectation in the air. It's a very interesting feeling, because I have to say that after living for 20-something years in New England and then moving to Florida, it took me a while to acclimate to Florida. But once I did, once I knew to expect it, then I definitely feel this shift every year at this time. When I lived in an area of the country where the climate change is more dramatic, I didn't feel it the same way. When I felt the chills then, I thought it was because of the wind picking up and becoming brisker. But in South Florida, there is no wind picking up and there is no chill in the air. Well, not yet anyway. The energetic shift that I am talking about is definitely not related to temperature. I think it really is something you feel where the underworld is available, where it opens up, where a bridge is created that is maybe not there at other times of the year. And it's this opening of the way, this ability to cross over the bridge, this thinning of the veil, if you will. This is the feeling that I'm trying to convey. Like when you know that you are speaking to your ancestors and that they are hearing you. The feeling that the spirits are closer and more available to you, and that questions you have been wanting to ask will now have answers given. I feel a push to be more inward-looking and contemplative, to be meditating more, and I find myself really listening to the wind. The trees and the wind blowing through them, it's almost like spirit talking. It's a shift that happens almost overnight here. I'm just going along in my day-to-day world, and then suddenly one day I notice it. Maybe in the morning when I go outside, or it could be in the evening coming home from work, but suddenly it's there. The chill that isn't a chill in the air, but in the ether. And I feel that the energies have moved. And suddenly I know, we're in Samhain. Samhain has started. And trust me, it doesn't happen on October 31st or on October 30th. It happens somewhere in the middle of the month. I feel the shift, and I know. I'm going to look at the astrological aspects to find out if there is a specific orb of influence. For example, my tradition teaches that Samhain occurs at 15 degrees Scorpio, which is the height of the energy of Scorpio, which is sex, death, and regeneration. How appropriate! At Samhain, we honor the dead, we honor regeneration, we honor life, death, and rebirth, the cycle of life. And so Samhain occurs at 15 degrees Scorpio, which, if you look at your ephemeris, is somewhere around November 4th or 6th usually, which means it's not actually on October 31st anymore. Since that shift happens before the sun enters 15 degrees Scorpio, I have to check an ephemeris to see if it's happening maybe 5 degrees before or 10 degrees. I think I will this year. When I feel the energy shift, I will check to see what degree of Scorpio the sun is in and make a note of it, so that next year I can check again and see if it's the same. Who knows? Hey, I love discovery. And if you live in a climate where the seasons change, do you feel it there? Even though it's not related to climate or to temperature, but it's deeper, more subtle, and less noticeable? It's something that you may really have to feel for. And I have found for me personally that when the weather was changing so dramatically around me, it was distracting. I didn't stop to feel the energy shifting. I didn't have to. The weather signified the change of seasons. The weather informed me because the leaves changed and the temperature dropped. But when did the energetic shift occur that's not related to temperature? That's instead the energies moving and the underworld opening. When did that occur? When did I feel that? Looking back, I'm not really sure. So I invite you to tune into the subtle energies. I invite you to check and see when you feel the shift occur. Mark the day on your calendar. Make a mental note. And then see when you feel it shift back again. When you feel the underworld close again. I usually do notice, and you probably will too if you pay attention to it. I want you to pay attention, close attention, to when you feel that energetic shift. And check in your ephemeris and see where the sun is in relation to 15 degrees Scorpio. When did you feel it? Was it at 10 degrees? Was it at 5 degrees? And maybe it might depend on you, or it might depend on your locality. I don't know. It's an interesting speculation. And if you want to email me, it's ladybridget@gmail.com. Let's compare notes. Happy Samhain.
An invocation to our Dark Lord Dis. Lord of Night, you who are now as we will become, Shepherd of souls, tend thy flock. Carry them across the river to rest and heal. Grant them passage to your realm, you who come for all, taking all in their time. Keeper of the dark mysteries of the shadow realms, comforter and companion. You do not take in anger or glee, but in time. You who we hate and fear as much as we honor and love. You who speaks volumes in your silence. You teach us to go deep into ourselves to truly learn the mysteries, that without death, life is meaningless and cannot go on, that something must be sacrificed so that something may be received. Everyone must pay their toll to be granted access. All must pass through your gates, stripped of mortal trappings, until they are their true selves once more. The spark in the darkness. Darkness must exist so that we may see the light. You are the one from whom we cannot hide our true selves. Keeper of keys, remover of masks, governor of mirrors, master of the blinding darkness. We make offerings to you so that you may tend our departed loved ones. Share your mysteries with them. Teach them of their true selves so that they may remember the lessons and share them with us. An invocation to our Dark Lady Umbria. Dark Mother, you who voluntarily leaves the light to seek out the shadows, you who finds love even in despair, show us who we truly are without the veneer of mortality or ego, and love us for it. Rest your hand on our shoulders as we taste the fruit of death so that we may find our way back in the darkness. Gather our emotions into you, our hatred, grief, anger, sorrow, and present them as a gift to your Dark Lord. Hold us as we weep and rage, then allow us to see through the veil and know that our loved ones are not gone, just out of view. Let us see them in the underworld, vibrant sparks of the eternal flame. You who deliver swift justice, you who are unafraid of the darkness, love us as we cry out for vengeance. Hold us as we rail against humanity, then carefully release us as we heal. Fold us into your dark robes, stained with the blood of our ancestors, and comfort us in our grief. Soothe our wails and remind us that we must go on. Peel back our masks and show us our true selves. Allow us to gaze into the abyss, but do not let us fall in. We make offerings to you so that you may comfort our loved ones. Help them realize that they are no longer part of the physical plane, but can return when they wish. Allow them to touch us and help us to release them to your light. So mote it be.
This is Kasha, and I have some book reviews for you today. The first book that I'd like to talk about at this time, Samhain time, is The Witch's Book of the Dead, written by Christian Day and published by Wiser Books in 2011. This is available in paperback. It's about 260 pages long, and it's also available in Kindle downloadable form. In this overview and practical guide to working with the dead, Christian Day discusses the many aspects of dealing with the departed, both those who we were familiar with in this life and those that we may not know well or well at all. He begins with a discussion of the role of the witch in myth and history, and talks about how witches over time have dealt with the dead. And then he goes into some practical advice and teaching about direct contact with the other side. He talks about discussing the tools that a witch can use for spirit work, maintaining altar, and he talks about mediumship. Now, there's nothing fluffy about Christian Day's work or writing. It's meat and potatoes, hands-on witchcraft. At times he's blunt when he discusses particular topics, but this is a serious subject. The book is written in a conversational tone that's easy to read, and it's full of rites, recipes, and exercises, and it also includes nice appendices with recipes and resources and references for deities of the dead. This isn't a book for beginners, but I would recommend it for people that have established practice, and in particular an established magical vocabulary. So I would recommend Christian Day's Witch's Book of the Dead for practitioners either beginning their work with the dead or wanting to enrich their current practice, and I would add it to an already existing library as an addition to other references on working with our departed. Another book that I think is appropriate to discuss at this time of year is called Memento Mori, M-O-R-I, a collection of magical and mythological perspectives on death, dying, mortality, and beyond. And this collection is edited by Kim Huggins. It's published by Avalonia Books, 2013. It's available in paperback, 278 pages, and also available for Kindle download. And as an aside, I want to mention that I really enjoy the offerings of Avalonia Publisher. This is a UK-based publisher, and they bring us books on a variety of topics and serious topics. Many of them involve quite a bit of research, discussion about traditional practice, and they cover things from mythology, elemental work, magic, ceremonial magic, and Wiccan-based work, and some really interesting compilations of essays on a variety of topics. So I encourage you to check out what Avalonia has to offer. And in that vein, this book, Memento Mori, is a collection of essays about death, mythology, theology, tradition, prose, and practice. There are 16 essays in here. They're really pretty interesting and varied. Some of the topics that you'll find in this book is communicating with the blessed dead. There's another one on eating with the dead, funeral meal practices. You can find an essay on traditional craft and the cult of the dead, dogs and death, guardians, omens, and psychopomps. And then there are some neat older prayers and essays. There's one called Death and the Lady, which is a 19th century English broadside ballad. And an American folk song called O Death. And so really an interesting collection of perspectives on death across the spectrum. And for those whose thoughts turn to that topic, are looking at references for different kinds of craft practice for this time of the year. It's really an interesting collection of materials. Again, it reads a little bit academically. It's not a conversational tone kind of book, but I don't think that's a bad thing. We have a collection of really interesting and research-based, in some cases, material about what's important to witches at this time of year. So I recommend this book as an addition to your library on interesting topics about death, tradition, mortality, and this dark time of the year. Enjoy.
Hello, Serona here. Just wanted to get in a little bit what's been going on in the world. Everglades Moon Local Council recently participated in several Pagan Pride Day events. We went to New Smyrna, Fort Lauderdale, Orlando, and Jacksonville. We had a blast at all of them. Next year, we hope to go to the new Pagan Pride Day coming up in Miami. Nationally, the Supreme Court has begun hearing arguments about opening governmental meetings with prayers. The city of Greece, New York, has had nearly exclusively Christian invocations for over a decade, and with the exception of 4 meetings, in one of which the opening invocation was led by a Wiccan priestess, all the others were Christian. 2 residents of Greece, one an atheist and one a Jew, have brought a lawsuit contending this violates the First Amendment's rights. Experts expect a decision around June. And finally, Everglades Moon proudly presents Turning the Tide, a 3-day celebration with workshops, rituals, music, food, camping, and building pagan community in South Florida. Come celebrate the 7th year of this great Florida gathering of witches and Wiccans with this Yuletide festival. This year's theme is the 7 of Cups, the heart's temptation. Perhaps you'll discover the path to your desires as we dive deep into the element of water. This weekend festival features workshops, rituals, drumming, and much more. We have our annual drawing for witchy goodies, contests, and a concert featuring musical guest Mama Gina. It's held December 6th through December 8th. Registration is now open. You can download a registration form from our website, emlc.net. Keep up to date with all the happenings at our Facebook page, facebook.com/EvergladesMoon. And remember to follow us at EML Tweets during the event to hear about all that's happening.
This is Lady Bridget, and I'm here with Lord Riekin, and he's going to talk to you tonight about a couple of more ingredients that were in the Master Tonic recipe.
Yep. Tonight we're going to do ginger, horseradish, and we have time some molasses, because I've gotten to where I really like using that in my Master Tonic. So we're going to start with ginger tonight. Ginger is an incredible herb with over 4,000 years of medicinal history behind it. It is a synergistic herb. In other words, it's one that combines well with other herbs, and the whole is more than the sum of the parts. More than half of the Chinese herbal medicines, the traditional medicines, all use ginger as one of the ingredients, mostly for that very reason, because it stimulates every other herb that you can use, just about. Ginger has strong antibacterial properties, antiviral properties. Ginger regulates the body temperature. It's good for ear infections, flu, cold, sore throat, coughs, angina, immune system. It's a great immune system stimulant. Ginger is a strong antioxidant, so of course it's good for the immune system. It's good for cleansing pollution from the body. It's good for cleansing the liver. It's good for fighting allergies, believe it or not. Reduces fever. It reduces migraines in a lot of cases. You can make a fresh ginger tea and take it if you're getting a migraine, and don't forget to inhale the tea aroma as you're doing that. Ginger can be regular use of ginger can help fight cancers of the colon, intestines, and ovaries, to help prevent them from occurring, not once you get them, but to help prevent them. Ginger is excellent for fighting excessive inflammation in the body. There are a number of diseases that are caused because inflammation doesn't go away. Inflammation is a good thing when you've been injured. It holds a joint where it's supposed to be. It inflamed tissues and such, as part of the healing process. But the idea is that as you heal, the inflammation should go away. The body should return to normal. If things get out of whack and the inflammation doesn't go away, then you get arthritis, diverticulitis, an inflamed gallbladder, a number of heart diseases, all caused because inflammation just doesn't go away. The reason for that is there's two enzymes in the body. I can't pronounce them, but their initials are COX and LOX, and they just keep the inflammation going. We have medications, but the medications all hit the COX. They don't really do much for the LOX, and they have a lot of side effects. Ginger affects the COX and the LOX pretty much equally, not as well as the over-the-counter medications that we have, but if you can get the body back on the right track, the body tends to heal itself, and with any luck, if you can just kind of like kick these enzymes in the butt, as it were, and get them to acting the way they're supposed to act, the body has a chance to heal itself. That's enough on that part of it. Again, the inflammation of arthritis is helped by ginger, a nice hot ginger tea. If at all possible, ginger should be taken not in the form of a ginger tea. There's lots of uses for ginger tea, don't get me wrong. You've got nausea, vomiting, morning sickness, take your ginger tea, no problem at all. But you're taking it hot and fresh. The best way to take ginger is chopped up and steeped in apple cider vinegar. You tend to get the best effect from it that way for a lot of the long-term internal uses. Ginger protects the stomach from all kinds of irritations, indigestion, diarrhea, malaria, fever, stimulates appetite, memory, actually use more ginger, has aphrodisiac properties. It kills a host of viruses. It stimulates blood circulation. While we're on the topic of blood, it also thins the blood in the sense that with the application of ginger, platelets don't stick together as well. So if you're on a blood thinner, ginger's counterindicated unless you check with your doctor and find out, if he's going to adjust your dosage because you're promising to take so much ginger a day. But that's why ginger is always part of a spring tonic. You want to, quote-unquote, thin the blood in the spring, and hey, that's exactly what ginger will do for you. Cleanses the body, cleanses the liver, the kidneys, so many things it does. You can always just keep in mind primarily, if it has anything to do with your stomach, take ginger. If you feel like you're all worn down and exhausted, take ginger. If at all possible, take the ginger with apple cider vinegar. If you need to add some honey to it to make it more palatable, hey, I like it. And I'll take that and put it in some water, and I'll drink it that way and enjoy it thoroughly. I guess that's enough on ginger for now. We'll go on to horseradish. So, horseradish. Okay, we all know you eat some horseradish, what's going to happen? Your sinuses are going to blow up. Exactly. It's not rocket science. Horseradish is one of the 5 original bitter herbs used in Passover. It goes back over 4,000 years in medicine, both the Chinese and the European. The horseradish we use probably came out of eastern Russia about 3,000 years ago. Sinus infections. Boy, if you've got a completely stopped up head, you chop a little bit of fresh horseradish root, tuck it in the corner of your cheek, and keep it there until it loses all of its flavor. By then, you'll know it had flavor because you'll be able to taste again because all your sinuses will have been cleared out and run down your throat. It fights infections of the sinuses and the ears. It is a strong antibiotic, primarily because of a sulfur-containing oil that's in the root. It's a strong diuretic. 3 to 4 tablespoons of freshly ground ginger with some apple cider vinegar.
You mean horseradish?
Oh, sorry, not ginger, horseradish. Taken in the apple cider vinegar every day will cleanse the blood, stop bladder infections, kidney stones. For indigestion, you can squeeze a little bit of the juice and put it in water and take it. If you think that you ate some meat that was going off a little bit, good time to take some horseradish because it can help counteract the effects of slightly spoiled meat. Clears all lung problems. Coughs. If you have a persistent cough, you want to chop up some horseradish and some honey. Let it steep overnight. Take that syrup every day for a persistent cough. It'll clean the throat and take care of the cough. Horseradish stimulates mucus systems, not just the ones in the sinuses. There are a lot of other mucus systems in the body. There are mucus systems that protect the stomach. There are mucus systems that protect the joints. So one of the reasons that horseradish is in the Master Tonic is to help protect the joints. Taking it, it's like changing the oil in your car. You take horseradish to help change the oil in your joints. Of course, going back to the days when humans tended to have a lot of worms, horseradish is a good vermifuge. It is an excellent immune system stimulant. It is a very powerful antioxidant. It is particularly useful in detoxifying the liver. And that's pretty much about it. When it comes to horseradish, it all comes back to the sinuses. Okay. Since didn't really have a lot to say about horseradish, I'm going to jump in and throw molasses into the mix. Now, molasses is not part of the original Master Tonic recipe, but I've taken to using it in recent years after some experimentation with it, because when I first make up a batch of Master Tonic, the first 3 or 4 months, it's hard to get anybody to take any of it. Lo and behold, you add a little bit of molasses to it, and it ages it. It ages it 6 months in a matter of a few days, and it makes it tolerable to everybody. Molasses, blackstrap molasses, particularly from the third boiling, is very high in iron. I found a website that had the chemical makeup of about 20 brands of molasses, and the iron content ranged from a low of 4% in Grandma's molasses up to most of the different brands of molasses had somewhere in the 15 to 20% iron range, and there are a few brands that had like 25%. There was one that said it was 40%, but I think that had to have been probably a misprint. That seems quite impossible. But apple cider vinegar plus molasses is an excellent source of iron in the body, particularly good for arthritis. Interestingly enough, I was reading some blogs about this, and most people do not like molasses in their tea. But I'm not a coffee drinker, but a lot of people were quite enthusiastic about using molasses in their coffee. They felt like the molasses gave the coffee an interesting flavor that they enjoyed, but most people did not enjoy molasses in their tea. I don't know about coffee. I'm not a coffee drinker. I agree with them thoroughly about molasses in tea. I don't find it to be all that tasty there either. But molasses and apple cider vinegar, the apple cider vinegar itself, the raw that we always use when we're making Master Tonic, is particularly good at putting the iron into your system in a form that is readily used by the system. Of course, I always use this with the caveat that too much of anything can be too much of a good thing. Too much iron in the body can be as big a problem as not enough iron. If you have normal iron levels, don't go making a syrup out of blackstrap molasses or anything. But the small amount that we use in the Master Tonic just to give it a nice rounded, well-aged flavor is not an issue.
How much do you use?
I use 1 cup of blackstrap molasses, just like I use 1 cup of all the other ingredients in infusion with half a gallon of apple cider vinegar. But that amount in that volume is not in any way excessive. And it makes it just much more palatable and much more pleasurable. What molasses is you've boiled all the sugar out of the sugar cane, and what's left is just a heavy dose of nutrients, heavy dose of minerals. It's not just iron, it's all the minerals that you can get from plant materials. Not the volatiles or such, because it's had the heck boiled out of it by then, but it is basically just distilled minerals. And that can be a bad thing, any way you want to look at it.
Sounds healthy.
It's extremely healthy. You find a brand of molasses that you like the flavor of, and apparently there's a wide range out there. Some are good, some are bad, some are sharp, some aren't. There are those who swear by the sulfur molasses and the ones that have been treated with sulfur to get more of the sugars out. Some swear that the best to be used are the ones that don't have any sulfur in them. You can go with the argument either way. But that's about it for that. I just wanted to throw the molasses in there. If we got another minute or two, people always ask, can you use anything else? Yes, you can. Any herb that you find a good medicinal use for, you can steep into Master Tonic. I happen to like to use oregano to a certain extent. This might be somewhat influenced by the fact that we always use Master Tonic on our salads. I don't say, but oregano is an excellent antibiotic and antihistamine. It's effective against colitis, and it just goes so well with Master Tonic when you're going to use it for
as salad
dressing like we do. But it's a great antibiotic, and it's excellent for sinus infections and such. So, hey, there's no downside to that. And I like the flavor of it in moderation. Don't want to use anything like the amounts of that I use on the other ingredients, but a handful of fresh oregano leaves steeped in the Master Tonic is a good thing. That's going to wind it up for tonight. That should be enough to keep everybody interested. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hi, this is Raven from the Circle of the Moonlit Sea. I want to read for you a poem that has been my favorite since I was a teenager. With the veil thinning and Samhain approaching, this tale of a man tortured with grief over the loss of his young wife, receiving an otherworldly visitor, seems timely. The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, "tapping at my chamber door, only this and nothing more." Ah, distinctly I remember it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I had sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, nameless here for evermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before, so that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door, some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. This it is, and nothing more." Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," said I, "or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore. But the fact is, I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you. Here I opened wide the door. Darkness there, and nothing more." Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there, wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word, "Lenore?" This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word, "Lenore." Merely this, and nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning, soon again I heard a tapping somewhat louder than before. "Surely," said I, "surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see, then, what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind, and nothing more." Open here I flung the shutter, when, with many a flirt and flutter, in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but, with mien of lord or lady, perched above my chamber door. Perched upon a bust of Pallas just above my chamber door, perched and sat, and nothing more. Then this ebony bird, beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore, "Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou," I said, "art sure no craven, ghastly, grim, and ancient raven, wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's plutonium shore." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." Much I marvelled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculptured bust above his chamber door, with such name as Nevermore. But the raven, sitting lonely on the placid bust, spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing further then he uttered, not a feather then he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered, "Other friends have flown before. On the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before." Then the bird said, "Nevermore." Startled at the stillness broken by reply so aptly spoken, "Doubtless," said I, "what it utters is its only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master, whom unmerciful disaster followed fast, and followed faster, till his songs one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore of never, nevermore." But the raven still beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door. Then, upon this velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking "Nevermore." This I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining on the cushion's velvet lining that the lamplight gloated o'er. but whose velvet violet lining with the lamplight gloating o'er she shall press, nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer swung by seraphim, whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. Wretch, I cried, thy God hath lent thee, by these angels he hath sent thee, respite and nepenthe, from thy memories of Lenore. Quaff, oh quaff this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, whether tempter sent, or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore. Desolate, yet all undaunted, on this desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted. Tell me, truly I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by that God that we both adore, tell this soul with sorrow laden, if, within the distant Aidenn, it shall clasp a sainted maiden, whom the angels name Lenore. Clasp a rare and radiant maiden, whom the angels name Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Be that word our sign in parting, bird or fiend, I shrieked, upstarting. Get thee back into the tempest, and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door. Quoth the raven, nevermore. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor. And my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore.
I'd like to welcome you all to this workshop on Rootwork 101. My name is Skip, and in other circles I'm known as Dr. Heron. There's also a Dr. Heron in Alabama, and he is actually my teacher for many years. And I've been allowed to use his name in continuing the work of Rootwork, also known as conjure, African American folk magic, hoodoo, and many other names. Does anybody here not know what this particular form of magic is about? Everybody's pretty familiar with it?
A little.
Okay, a little. That helps. It was derived back when the slaves were imported over from the southeast part of Africa in the region of the Dahomey, the Fon, and the Yoruba. And when they came over, it was called the Mayflower. That was like when everyone was brought over. And they settled in the plantations and such. And they brought with them all the magical and all the spiritual learnings that they had. A lot of them were sent to the Caribbean, and then they were exposed to Catholicism, and they had to blend their form of spirituality with Catholicism, which resulted in what we know today as voodoo, candomblé, Santa Maria, Obeah, and many others of that tradition. But what we're dealing with here, hoodoo or Native American folk magic, started in the southeast portion of the United States, mainly in South Carolina, and it just progressed. It just sort of branched out from there. It goes all the way to New Orleans and as far north geographically as North Carolina, although it has been recorded many other places in this region. It blends a lot of the African folk magic theories and magical techniques with the European magical techniques. And then, of course, it's blended with the Native American herbology, which when the Africans came over, they didn't have all the plants and herbs and stones and such that they had in the native countries. So I'd like to also add, anytime while I'm having this presentation, if anybody has any questions, please do not hesitate to ask. I do not mind being interrupted, because a lot of times when a question is thought of, if you wait till the presentation is near the end, then it might have been forgotten or actually thought of as not really something worth mentioning. So anytime you have anything to add, ask, or whatever, please just get right in the conversation. It actually started back around the 1800s, the early 1800s. There's a lot of people that came together, and they just wanted to keep the tradition going. And as it was blended, it just sort of branched out from there. There's a lot of tales that was brought forth. One of them was High John. Has anybody heard of High John the Conqueror root? Good. Okay. No? Okay. High John was a freedman that worked on the plantation, but he is one of those guys that didn't take any crap from anybody. And when somebody tried to overpower him or tell him what to do, he would find ways to actually counteract whatever was being put against him. And a lot of the people went to him for advice because he was so crafty. And there is a root known as High John the Conqueror root. Yes?
How would you recommend working with it? Because it is really hard. Or at least it was like blank.
How would I recommend working with it? Normally, you just use it as it is. A lot of times, you anoint it with oils, and you could. A lot of times, it's basically used in conjure bags, or mojo bags, or gree bags, certain items like that. And specifically, is used a lot in a money conjure bag, which it is anointed with banban oil, and then that empowers it. If we would like, and we have time, I can get into how to actually make one with all the ingredients that are available just about anywhere in metaphysical stores or craft shops and such like that.
So what is the substance you're talking about?
It's a root of like a morning glory plant, and it's usually it goes from about a half inch, large ones about 1 inch to an inch and a half. I was going to bring some of these with me to pass out as demonstrations, but I just got a little bit of a hurry getting out of all the situations I was in at home. But you can buy it at most metaphysical stores or through a company called Azure Green online. Probably heard of that a lot. You can buy it in a bag. There's usually 3 or 4 of them, small ones, or 1 or 2 of them in larger size. High John the Conqueror has been used since very early times, and there's also another one called Low John root, and that is used for a lot of times for drawing in money, interest in romance, and such like that. In the 1800s, a lot of the blues singers knew about the art of hoodoo, and they started singing songs about it. One of them was Skip James, Tommy Johnson. I don't know if anybody's heard of Tommy Johnson or Robert Johnson. They sang songs about meeting the devil at the crossroad and trading their souls for riches unknown and abilities and talents. There was one movie that was very close to what this was pertaining to. It's called Crossroads. It was with Ralph Macchio. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it had a lot of things, and the characters that actually existed were depicted in this. Willie Brown, he was in that movie also, and it showed how he went through the motions of making a deal with Legba, who, incidentally, Legba is not specifically the devil of Christian persuasion. He's the devil as a trickster. And you meet with the dark spirit of the crossroads. Yes?
I'm sorry.
No.
Did you say Legba or Legba?
Legba. It is essentially Elegua, but in hoodoo, he is the only Orisha that is dealt with and calling upon him for favors and such. Legba, or Elegua, Eshu, Mbumba Ndila, Dark Spirit of the Crossroads, essentially. He's the Orisha who grants magic, teaching, even healing, but he's also known as the trickster. So whatever you do, you've got to have the upper hand in dealing with this spirit. And there is a ritual called the Crossroads Ritual, and in that specific ritual, you go to the crossroads. Any crossroads will do, even animal paths. A crossroad or a crosswalk or something that has an intersection. It can be a three-point intersection. So you go there, as the tale goes, 9 nights at midnight in a row. And you take with you something to trade on the 9th night. And you're supposed to be visited on that ninth night at the crossroads at midnight by a dark spirit. I've known people who have gone there, actually done this procedure, and they haven't really seen anything, but they can see a dark shape, they can feel something is there. And if they leave what they have brought as a gift and tell the spirit what they want out of life or out of what their ritual for this has done, they leave that at the crossroads and believe very much in what they have done, and they turn and walk away and not look back ever. Because if you look back, you're second-guessing what you want. So I've known several people who have done this, including myself, and it has worked. It, like I say, it has nothing to do with the Christian devil or any other malevolent force. Anything? Yes?
Can it be the same crossroads so you can never look back?
After you do the procedure or the ritual, you're not supposed to look back to see if anything is there or if you've left anything, because you're supposed to go there specifically for something, and you got to have confidence and know what you've done has taken effect. It's like second guessing what you're doing or having doubt.
So like a year later.
Oh yeah, you can use the same crossroads over and over and over, but just don't do it that night and don't act like you made a mistake, because you're just completely going against what you set out to do. Getting back to the songs, there's been a lot of songs lately about hoodoo, which is Rootwork. One of the last ones that I've heard of is by a group called Crocus. Anybody heard of Crocus? They're a rock group. They recently came out with a song of the same name. The album is Hoodoo, and the song is Hoodoo Woman. And then it goes back even farther. Anybody heard of John Fogerty? Yeah, okay. John Fogerty in the 1975 era, just when he was getting away from the record company he's with, he came out with an album called Hoodoo. And he actually recorded a song called Hoodoo Man, and another one like dealing with dark spirits and such. But the album was never released, although there are bootleg copies of it on the internet. And he was into something that I think has always interested him, even back going to look at Born on the Bayou. It mentions hoodoo there. I can still hear my old hound dog barking, chasing down a hoodoo there. And that's one of the first times that I've actually heard it in public or in song. But Robert Johnson, back in the 30s, he was said to have done the Crossroads Ritual, and he led a very exciting, profitable life of songs. He's done so many popular songs and was basically one of the fathers of modern blues music. There was quite a few others. Memphis Minnie, she also sang about this particular interest. And the list is just endless. And there's also been movies made about conjure, hoodoo. Anybody see The Skeleton Key?
Yeah.
Yeah, that deals a lot with it, although a lot of these movies are not entirely accurate, although this one did touch on a lot of subject matter that was actually pretty accurate. Like it differentiates between hoodoo and voodoo. Voodoo being a religion, where hoodoo or root work is just a magical practice. So there's a lot of difference there, and I've been discussing this with people doing workshops the last 10 or 15 years, and every time I say hoodoo, they say, oh, you mean voodoo? I said, no, I mean hoodoo. So it's just, things are changing. They really are. Just like when people used to think about being called a witch. Oh my gosh, a witch. Oh no, not a witch. So now, witch is something that people can, see themselves in an air of respect. So it's just a matter of learning what things are and letting progress take place and just, letting things do. Letting them make progress.
So I got a question.
Ask me one.
All right, movie Angel Heart. Is that voodoo or voodoo or a mixture of both?
Is who?
Angel Heart? Did you see that movie?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I'll have to check that out. And that's one reason I always bring a pad with me, because I don't know everything, but occasionally I ask a question where I don't know the answer. And when I don't know the answer, then I can learn the answer and I will know. Angel Heart.
Yeah. H-A-R-T. Nikki Rourke. Nikki Rourke.
Okay.
Lisa Bonet. Yeah, Lisa Bonet.
Okay.
Oh, that took place in New Orleans. Wasn't it set in New Orleans?
Yeah, he's a PI. And he's put on a quest to find the sign.
Okay.
And his path goes into voodoo country.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. I don't want to do a spoiler. So just watch the movie.
Okay.
And after you watch it first time, you have to watch it a couple more times.
Okay. Well, besides this one that I have not seen, and Skeleton Key, which I think has been seen, there's another one called Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil.
Yeah.
That deals with it too. And
that's voodoo or voodoo?
Well, a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I think it actually tells the difference in there as well as the time it did in Skeleton Key. But things are really coming to light. People aren't afraid to ask. People aren't afraid to know. And it just really amazes me what's really happened in the last 10 years or so. I mean, just not only in this magical practice, but every one of them. Like the situation we have here at Pahokee. About a month ago, wow, do we want to go there? Do we really want to go and be exposed to this? And I've been in town here several times. People are great. And it just takes talking and explaining and getting to know people who think something different of what is actuality. A lot of the herbs and stuff used in root work have been around for many, many years. They just, like the Hijama conqueror root. Has anybody ever heard of devil shoestrings?
Yeah.
Okay.
Devil shoestrings?
Devil shoestrings is like a long, stringy root. You can buy it at almost any metaphysical store. Azure Blue sells this stuff all the time. And the reason they call it devil shoestrings is because the devil in this instance is good old Edgar, and he likes to play tricks on people. And what you do, you take a few pieces of devil shoestrings, put them in whatever work you're doing, and that's supposed to trip them up and protect what your manifestations are. So, how about five-finger grass? Otherwise known as think foil.
Five-finger grass?
That is used in a lot of conjuration spells to bring things to you, like five fingers. You want to reach and grab and hold. And that's used a lot. Lodestone, everybody knows what lodestone does. It's used a lot in conjure.
I don't know what lodestone does.
Okay, lodestone is a natural magnetic rock.
Okay.
And they use it in, I think, Santorians use it a little bit too. What you do, in fact, when I go to get lodestone, I also get a quantity of what they call piedra y mesa.
Say that one again. Piedra mesa?
Piedra iman.
Okay.
That means magnetic sand. And what it is, it's usually a little bit of the granules that chip off of the lodestone, and you separate this, And when you want to work the lodestone, you put the lodestone on a petition or whatever you want to do. I use it a lot in money bag conjuration. You put the lodestone down and you sprinkle it or feed it with the magnetic sand. So you're actually creating a working using this.
That concludes this Samhain episode of Reaching for the Moon. Look for our new podcast near Yule, where we look forward to sharing about our Turning the Tide Festival, continuing the Rootwork workshop, new book reviews, and much more. We'll talk to you then. Lesson B.
Where once the roses bloomed, now only briars grow. On the hillside the milkweed is flying. The apple's ripe perfume and the fading embers glow. Around us the summer is dying. Sink down, sink down, sink deeper and more deep, where the earth is soft and tender. The secret well by the sacred tree, where my soul remembers. Where once a lark did sing and a lazy hawk did glide, the fields lay shorn with a marking. For summer's on the wing, wild geese across the sky. 'Tis always too soon for the parting. Sink down, sink deeper and more deep, where the earth is soft and tender. The secret well by the sacred tree, where my soul remembers. My heart is like the grain that the reaper cuts and ties. It weathers the seasons and scything. I'm coming home again with the barley and the rye to welcome the harvest arriving. Sink down, sink deeper and more deep, where the earth is soft and tender.